Hi folks, Adam here at OpenOrg. Welcome to what will be the first in a series of employer brand breakdowns that we plan to do here at OpenOrg. Anyone who follows us as a business knows that what we're trying to do, generally speaking, is rebuild trust in employer brands, rebuild trust in employers, not just for applicants, but for employees as well. But a big part of what we do here is working with companies to help them elevate their employer brand in a more honest, authentic way, elevate transparency and openness so that they're sharing more information with candidates and applicants and helping people make a more informed decision about whether they will thrive in a certain environment. What we're going to start doing is some regular breakdowns of random companies that we pick to help people understand a little bit more about what companies could and should be sharing more of on their websites. We're going to specifically focus on companies for the purposes of transparency, on companies that operate or lead with transparency or openness or some form of that in their values. And we've picked for our first one here, Monday.com, probably a very well-known name to a lot of people who do watch this and see this. Monday.com, big employer, very well-known platform. They lead in their values with transparency as one of those values, which you'll see if I just scroll down here. You see it's one of their core values that they also talk about this on their About Us page as well, but transparency is a big part of what Monday.com lead with. So we're going to dive in. The format for these will be roughly 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much we have to get through. Broadly speaking, we're going to look at breaking down three core things. One is career site. One is job adverts. We'll dive into one of those as well. And we'll also have a peek at Glassdoor as well at the end. I take Glassdoor with a huge pinch of salt. I'm not the biggest fan in the world. However, it can be a useful indicator to give people an idea as to whether there are some recurring themes or things happening within a business at the moment that maybe aren't being reflected clearly on a careers page as well. So we'll dive into Glassdoor at the end as well, just to give a bit of a rounded view on what that reality might look like and some of the areas where companies could have an opportunity to be clearer around their culture as a business. And we try and frame these FYI as closely aligned to our what we call our open culture framework as possible. Our open culture framework at OpenOrg focuses on 6 core pillars: culture, compensation, career development, flexibility, hiring, and diversity. So when I talk, I'm going to be hopefully referring to how clear some of the elements across these pages are when it comes to some of those core pillars we like to look at around transparency and clarity. So let's dive in. I haven't had a chance to pre-look at this too much, so I'm working off the cuff here, which hopefully will be useful. So Monday.com, going to whiz through the careers page, see what we can see here, and maybe talk about ways that maybe we could elevate or maybe things that they do really well as well. So they lead at the start with talking about the fact that Monday.com is a certified great place to work. Again, I take those things with a pinch of salt. Many people will, but that's quite cool to see. It gives me hope as an applicant that this is a great place to work, and I want to find out a little bit more about what that means, particularly at Monday.com. It dives straight into jobs at the top, which you might expect as a careers page. And personally, I'm a fan of putting it a bit further down so that people can read more about the business before they dive down rabbit holes and look at individual jobs. But we'll come back to the jobs in a minute once we finish doing the careers page. So first up, what our team loves about Monday.com, you see a lot of these employer stories on people's careers pages. They can be useful. My advice, and looking at the ones that are on here as well, they're very, very positive. They're people talking about why this is such an amazing place to work, why I love it, why it's, we're so supportive of each other. You can see that there. Why we've got so much opportunity here and things like that. So employer stories can be helpful. However, people know what they're going to get before they start reading these things. They expect to see the sort of rainbow unicorn type vibe before they even start reading these things. What I think is a personal sort of opportunity to elevate here is to start getting some reality into this. Get people talking about what it really means to work here. What some of the tough days look like? How have we gotten through those tough days? What does it really take to succeed here? Rather than just people sort of saying that this is the best place ever, you should come and work here. There's an opportunity to add some balance to employee stories that not many companies actually opt to go for. But my gut feel is the large majority of people will skip straight past this. This is wasted space on a lot of career sites because it tends to be relatively cookie cutter information that gets put there. So that's just a personal opinion. But the next thing I see when I scroll down is what Monday.com is all about. Now, there's some words posted on this page here. It's not clear to me right now whether these are company values. It doesn't explicitly say they are. Some companies don't operate with values either. That's absolutely fine. I'm assuming there may be values. You've got transparency, you've got impact, accountability. There's a little bit of an explanation for what they look like on a deeper level. I'll take the transparency one here. So transparency creates a culture of inclusion and alignment, ensuring everyone is on the same page. This isn't necessarily saying what transparency means at Monday.com. This feels like it's something that's taken from a dictionary, as a definition of broader transparency. What would be helpful here is a clear idea as to why is transparency on this page? What does it genuinely mean at this business? And are there some examples that we can provide to show how we provide transparency to our employees, to our applicants, to our customers, whatever that might look like? That helps bring this value to life, if indeed it is a value. But as a candidate, as a potential applicant, I'm still a little bit unaware of whether this is a value or not, as useful as some of these words are. There's another section a bit further down here about Monday.com in the news. Great, useful to be able to dig around and see a little bit about the PR and news side of things. And then further down, we've got an equal opportunity statement, which you don't need to read. It's very cookie cutter, very normal to have something like this on a careers page nowadays. The opportunity, particularly for an employer like Monday.com, who's leading with something around transparency and so on and so forth, is to probably use this as an opportunity to be more open about what diversity and inclusion actually looks like in this business. Too many employers lead with trying to tackle diversity and inclusion and equality by putting one of these statements on a careers site or a job advert. As a bare minimum, sure, fine. You'd expect to see it there, and you'd be surprised if it wasn't. But this doesn't add any elevation, any kudos, any nods of approval from people by having this on here. And it's not enough to put something like this on a careers page, in my personal opinion, to tick that diversity box, so to speak. It's very, very performative. So anyway, it's there, fine, but it's not necessarily doing anything to help showcase anything for Monday.com around what diversity, inclusion, equality actually looks like in this business. Ways you could elevate that, and maybe we'll see that on a job advert in a minute, for example, is let's see a little bit more about what DEI looks like within this business, the commitments you've made, maybe which ones you're failing on, which ones you're looking to try and improve on, maybe talking a little bit about accessibility and how people have the opportunity to ask for certain interview adjustments or whatever that might be. There's opportunity to go further into that on job adverts. Let's see if they maybe do. That's it. So that's a bit of a surprise, actually, before we dive into job adverts. What I would typically want to see a little bit more of on a careers page, particularly for a company that is talking about transparency as a value, is a little bit more information. I haven't seen anything here yet about how work gets done in this business. Despite being a great place to work, which is a badge that is anchored so heavily in workplace culture and so on and so forth, I've seen nothing about culture yet. Absolutely nothing that alludes to how we get our work done together. Where do we work? When do we work? A little bit about our ways of working, how we communicate, how we feedback. There's nothing about culture on this page at all. I've seen nothing about that. I've seen nothing yet around compensation, which I might see more of in a minute on job adverts. But compensation is such an important topic for people to understand more about, and there's been nothing about this yet that I can see. There's not even a benefits section. You might, on most career sites, see something about benefits mentioned, even if it's a basic grid outlining some of the basic key things that you might get in this business. I haven't seen that yet from anything that I've read. Nothing about career development, which is fine. Not all companies major on that, but there's nothing that alludes to what that looks like here, maybe. Diversity isn't again, as I highlighted just now, isn't a big thing from what I can see, and there's not much visibility yet on what hiring looks like and what the general hiring process might look like here as well. So I think this is a very, very vague starting point for me for a company that leads with transparency. There's so much opportunity for Monday.com to lean into transparency, lean into that value, and go way, way deeper with this careers page if they wanted to. So anyway, let's just dive into a job advert next and just see if there's any more that we can find. I can see already that there are some locations mentioned next to some of these, so maybe we find out a little bit more about how work gets done, where work gets done. I'm going to pick a London one. I'm biased. I'm based in the UK, so I'm just going to click on that and just see what we see, and see if we get any useful information from this. So, application security expert. It says it's London, UK. It says it's full time. So far, I still don't know what that means. London, UK, am I in the office every day? Some days, who knows? Full time doesn't necessarily tell me much. Full time means different things in different businesses. I want to know a little bit more as an applicant, how those hours are spent, so on and so forth. Anyway, let's have a quick flick through. I haven't seen this advert yet, so bear with me. You're reading at the same time as I am. So we see here actually. So quite early on in the advert, great. This is useful. Monday.com works hybrid with 3 days in the London office. That's something that's useful. You could add a little bit more clarity here, Monday.com, by just giving a little bit more insight into how those 3 days are spent. You might know that there's flexibility around that, but I'd love to know as an applicant, can I pick those 3 days? Could it be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Could it be any day that I pick? Does it have to be the same days every week? Can I just pick and choose as the weeks come? Or are there certain rules in place, i.e. 3 days a week in the office, but actually Monday and Friday are two of the given days we have to be in? More clarity around what hybrid means for your company is so helpful here. And this sadly is a really sort of a typical thing that you tend to see on job adverts. The clarity around when we work and where we work is just not there. But for a company that's majoring on transparency, huge opportunity for you just to go a little bit further here and tell people exactly what hybrid actually means within your business. Got a section here about the role. I'm going to skip over some of that. It's not for me to dive into role specifics, role to role, and talk about what should and shouldn't be there necessarily. I trust that Monday.com hopefully have scoped out their role properly and know what they need, who they need, and why. What I'm actually looking for is a little bit more information. Again, something that maybe alludes to some of the core pillars that we look at. Compensation. Let's look at compensation. I've not seen anything here yet around compensation. I'm applying for a role potentially as an application security expert, and I have no idea what I'm going to be paid, what the salary band is. It's very, very ambiguous. So that's not great. Like, not every company has tackled pay transparency yet, but if you're leaning into transparency as a core value, it should be something that you are looking at and leading on as a business, and that's not there. So that's a bit of a disappointment as an applicant, not being able to see anything, and there's not even the sort of bog standard competitive salary mentioned. Outside of salary, I can't see anything about broader benefits, maternity, paternity leave, pension, other benefits that might be included. Bonus, who knows? There's nothing mentioned, so it leaves me with a little bit of like an unknown there in terms of like what am I getting as part of this. I can't see much about culture. Again, not just broader company culture, but this team as well. How does this team do its best work? Who's in the team? How do we communicate? What does that look like? I can't see much about that. There is a thing down here that talks about meeting the security team. There's a bit of a typo there. Read our blog post. So there's a blog post that you can scroll down to by the looks of things and see something more of. I can't see much here other than a quick photo of the team. But there might be something deeper in the blog post, which I won't go into now, but that could be interesting to read. There might be something a little bit more about how we work as a team, specifically. Again, flexibility when and where we work is not covered a great deal. There's not much that I can see right now around career development. And I can't see anything at all about hiring process mentioned here. There's an application form here that I can fill out, nice and straightforward, and you can apply quickly with LinkedIn. That's great. That's all good. But other than that, I've got no indication of what the following process is going to look like. There's no transparency for applicants on what happens next. And that's such a big opportunity to lean into. Again, if you're a company that majors on transparency in their values, you should be leaning into how you can make this candidate experience as transparent as possible. Show people the hiring process, show them what comes next, give them more information about your business so that they have some comfort around what's coming. At the moment, I have no idea. And again, just circling a little bit back to diversity is one of our other core pillars that we look at, and the transparency around that. It's okay that some companies haven't mastered diversity fully yet. It's not one that everyone's a lot of people are on a journey with that, and not everyone's super comfortable with knowing what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. But if you're going to be talking about equal opportunity, you should try and go a little bit further as to like what does this actually mean. And again, this statement here just feels a little bit too cookie cutter to me personally. You could copy and paste this and put it on any website, and it just feels very, very similar. What I want to be seeing ideally is a little bit more detail around what diversity and inclusion and accessibility actually looks like for this business. If you're going to take the time and effort to put it on here, it feels like there's an opportunity to do that. So we talk a little bit here, of course, about like committed to working and providing access and reasonable accommodation. You can elevate this massively by giving some examples of what those accommodations could be. A lot of people who need accommodations either don't realize that they do, or they don't know what they should be asking for. So help them a little bit. Talk to them about, this is what we've done previously for some folks. This is what you could ask for if you think you need help. If you're not sure whether you need help, just ask us. Just making it a little bit easier for people to ask for that help can go a really, really long way. So high level, before we jump into Glassdoor, job advert, again, a bit like the careers page, doesn't offer me much. It's very sort of much focused on some bullet points around skills needed in the role. That's it. I don't know when I'll be in the office, really how often, what days, the hours that I'll be working. I don't know anything about compensation and salary. I don't know much about culture and how the business gets its work done, who thrives, who doesn't thrive here. It's a very, very finger to the wind type job application at the moment if I do decide to submit my CV. So I'm going to maybe have a quick peek at Glassdoor now and see if I can do some research before I apply to this role that I won't actually apply to. So let's have a little peek here at Monday.com's profile. As I said at the start, this is something that I take with a huge pinch of salt. I'm not a huge fan of Glassdoor. I don't rely too heavily on it, but it can give you a bit of an indication as to what you're going to be getting. On the face of it, they don't have a bad score. They've got 4.4 stars. Seems pretty decent. They've got quite a lot of reviews there. 96% approval of CEO. That feels good. So you could look at that very high level and think, okay, this is great. What I want to do here, though, is actually focus on the opportunities for Monday.com to look at what's on there and try and think about how they can feed some of that back into their career site, their job ads, to talk more openly and honestly about what people are going to get here. It's okay that there's, for example, no work-life balance. Some people don't need that work-life balance. Some people are workaholics. They love working all hours of the day and they're super, super happy with long hours. If that's the case at Monday.com, fine. But tell people that before they join. Give people the opportunity to self-select in or out. So this is what we want to sort of look for, I suppose, if we can. And just as way of highlights, I suppose, it's a good place to start because it pulls in some of the sort of high-level trends, I suppose. So no work-life balance. Again, we've just covered that. It's okay to have that, but just tell people a little bit more about what life at Monday.com works like. If we think back to those employee stories that we were talking about at the start, they're all very sort of like sunshine, rainbows, unicorns. Like, this is the best place to work in the world. It couldn't be better. Come and join us. This is your opportunity to say, you know what, these are some of the trade-offs here. It's great here. We have great fun. We work with great colleagues, but you know what, actually, it's really long hours. And if you don't want a role that's going to have really long hours associated with it, we're probably not the right place for you. So this is something that people have clearly picked up on in a number of reviews here. It says here, the managers don't care because it benefits them, but it hurt my ability to get a raise at the end of the year. So there's some stuff here around compensation. Also, commission is mentioned as well. There's no clarity on the bonus structure. This isn't great for a company that is leading with transparency as a core value. You must be in office, low pay, low bonus, only as good as your last mistake. So again, there's something around necessity to be in the office that starts giving me a little bit of like uncertainty around the solidity of that hybrid statement. How often am I actually going to be asked to come in? Is it more than I think? Who knows? Again, the low pay, low bonus is mentioned, and I haven't been given any information yet as an applicant about what that looks like. I'm starting to pull back a little bit. I'm thinking, is this going to be the sort of place I want to be at? And because I've not been given that information by the business on their job ads or their career site, I'm starting to now rely on Glassdoor, which I shouldn't be needing to rely on, to fill that narrative, to fill those gaps. So this is starting to tell me a little bit of a picture, which is not looking great from an employer brand perspective. Now let's just have a peek at some couple of reviews just to sort of round this off. I'm now being told on this one that one of the pros is good compensation, so that's good, awesome. But I have also been told that it's not great. I'm getting very sort of mixed signals here. This thing here is interesting, actually, that I want to just highlight here. So one of the cons that someone's mentioned here is meeting heavy culture. Average of 3 hours of meetings per day for engineers. This is such an important thing, not just for engineers and techies, but a lot of employees now want to know more about how often they're going to be spending in meetings per day. And it's okay to have an environment and a culture where you are spending 3 hours of meetings per day. Maybe that works for you. If so, great. If that's what you need for your business to thrive, perfect. But tell people that. Put a section on your careers site that alludes to what your culture is like. Talk about your meeting philosophy and how that works. We touch on that in our open culture framework. That's one of our 35 areas, is encouraging companies to talk a little bit about their meeting philosophy, give people some insight, help people to self-select in or out. You don't want to hire an engineer that comes in not expecting this and then opts out and leaves after a few months because they're not subscribing to the way you work. You're just wasting time and money on both sides. So if this is a common theme across your business, then it's definitely worth thinking about whether you can pull some of that into your career site and your employer brand, so that people aren't having to just find this out for the first time on Glassdoor, for example. So again, what I'm seeing here is like high base salary but no commissions. I'm still very confused about how compensation works in this business. It's not really giving me a very clear indication of what life is like, I suppose. We've got another suggestion here that there's an unhealthy obsession with work, very little room for life. Again, this work-life balance thing is coming up, and that's okay if that's what it's like here. But if it's not going to work for certain people, if certain people can't thrive in that environment, you should help people to understand what that looks like. Another thing here that goes against your transparency as a business, this is a great review, which is awesome. But one of the cons here is unclear progression routes. It's okay, again, not to have these things planned out and mapped out fully, but you should be telling people about this very openly so that they know before they come in, and it's less likely to become a con in their mind if they know what they're getting, if they know what they're subscribing to before they join the business. So anyway, I've rattled on long enough. I could go through another 100 or so of these reviews and probably keep talking about this, but there is a clear mismatch for me here on a couple of things, a couple of key topics that you have an opportunity to pull into your careers page or job adverts. One overall comment or theme that I would make, having looked at this up for over 20 minutes or so, is this is a business here that is leading with transparency as a core value. Transparency means different things in different businesses. I'm not assuming that this means that the business feels like it should be transparent about everything, but I'm making a bit of a judgment call as an applicant that despite seeing this word transparency, this is a really, really vague career site and job advert for me that I've seen that doesn't really go very deep on anything like compensation, anything like culture, flexible working, when and where we work is really, really unclear to me. Career development is unclear, and I've since read a few things on Glassdoor which suggest to me that that's very unclear for current employees that are in the business as well. Diversity, despite not leaning into this in values necessarily, is very, very high level, and I think there's opportunities to elevate that. And there's some really simple opportunities to elevate things like hiring process and what that looks like within this business. Very, very simple stuff to put in place, and very, very easy to implement and embed on career sites and job adverts, just to take you from a state of what is seemingly very opaque to something that is open, that reflects the value that you've got. And you've got some opportunities on your Glassdoor page to pull in a few more bits of information that might help people to read this information on your site first before they start reading people's views on it on Glassdoor. Take some more ownership of that narrative and talk to people about what meetings look like, about who thrives, who doesn't, why you should and shouldn't join this business. And those Glassdoor reviews suddenly become less impactful from that point of view. Anyway, this was useful for me to look at. I think there's some awesome opportunities for Monday.com. It's awesome to see companies leading with transparency and values. What I want to see personally is proof that you're practicing what you preach, proof that what we are leading with here is reflected internally. And I don't see that right now, based on what I've seen. But hopefully some good takeaways here for people to think about, even if they're not working for Monday.com, in the people or employer branding team, hopefully some useful things to take away for your own business.